It's there! Holy moly, this one's gonna go big.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. This video is basically an answer to a question that was left on the previous videos about Up and Over. I've made two videos about Up and Over, that one there and that one there. Quite a few comments were left on those videos. Also, we had a little chat about it over at Jackpotty forums, over at Desert Island Fruits, and over at Casino Meister as well. And the same thing came up time and time again, the same comment, the same question. Was there a club version of this? And the answer to that is yes, there was. There was a club version of Up and Over. It was this fella here called Trailblazer Club, not called Up and Over Club for reasons that will become clear. We have got it running here in the Big Daddy Casino version with a £1,000 jackpot, and I will be taking the £1,000 jackpot out of this. I have got it ready. It's very close to paying a jackpot, and we'll have the £1,000 jackpot out of it in this video. I'm going to have a little chat around the version of the emulator that we're running in here and the layout itself. There'll be time codes in the video description if you just want to skip forward through all the waffle and intro and just get straight to the gameplay. And you can see it just scrolling past there, the £1,000 jackpot. Now, about the version of the emulator that we're running here and the layout itself, this is, let me just bring up the about box, version 9.4. This is one of the leaked versions of the emulator. I have mentioned these before, but I haven't really dwelled on them too much because it was a bit of a... It was always a little bit of a sore point, particularly, of course, when Chris was still alive. Of course, Chris is now no longer with us, and I know that this was a sensitive subject for him, but this layout only runs in version 9.4 of the emulator. If you try and load it into 5.1 to convert it over, you get horrible alarm errors. There's something wrong with the config or the setup of the machine. I'm sure it could be fixed in the new version of the emulator, but as is, loading it into version 5.1, it doesn't work. So you can see the date there. This is from 2004, and this now I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of how this got into the public domain. It was never intended for public release. It was a private build that Chris had only shared with a handful of people, and I do know the story about how it got out, but I'm not going to dredge up all that again. It's a little bit of old history now, a little bit of history that we don't necessarily need to revisit, but it did get out into the open. If you were around at the time, you'll know the story behind it. And it was actually a version, an older code base than the last publicly released version of MFME. The last in fact, I've actually got it here. Let me just load it up. So this is the final publicly released version. You can see there, 3.2, 2006. So the code base that we were looking at on the other version of the emulator, you could see the date on that was 2004. So this here, let's just wait for that to scroll past. Again, you can see the date on this. This was publicly released by Wizard. This was a legitimate release, sort of sanctioned by Chris. You can see there, version 3.2, 2006. And here we are again. Let's just go to about here. You can see version 9.4, 2004. This is an older code base that was never intended to get out into public release. But you can see here that Chris was working. We'll just have to get rid of that because Chris here was working. You can see there all the text that he was working on. So, for example, Scorpion 4, that wasn't in version 3.2. A lot of these texts here were not officially supported in 3.2, but you can see that Chris was already working on them. But some of they're not actually some of these aren't even functional in this version of the emulator. But the two texts that it gave us was MPU 5 and Scorpion 4. And these leaked there were two versions that were leaked, 9.4 and 9.9. And they gave us MPU 5 support and Scorpion 4 support, albeit a little bit buggy. There were many issues with Scorpion 4 machines that didn't run properly. They only ran in door open mode. MPU 5 wasn't complete. Red Gaming, for example, the protection on Red Gaming hadn't been broken in this version of the emulator, so even though Reds used MPU 5, they were non-runners. There were all kinds of little glitches and issues. It wasn't yes, the techs were in and they were supported, but it was a little bit of a lottery as to whether or not any specific ROM set would run properly. However, many layouts were released for these leaked versions of the emulator. Chris had already said that was it. He said, I'm not going to go into the horrible old history of it. It was a very fractious time, but Chris had basically said, I am never releasing another never making another public release of the emulator. These two became available, and yes, many people did download them, make layouts on them, and we played layouts on them, and this is one of them. Trailblazer Club is one of them, and at this moment in time, I'm running it in this old version of the emulator, version 9.4, because it doesn't run in 5.1. Once you convert it over, it just chucks a horrible alarm. Now, we're going to get the jackpot out of it on this. I did it the old-fashioned way, the hard way, because there was no autoplay. If you look here where the auto, that's actually got my Bandicam window's just a little bit out there, but if you go to design, obviously in the new version of the emulator, that's where your autoplay is under design. That was a new feature that was only added in version 6 of the emulator. I made a video about it at the time. There was no such thing in these old versions of the emulator. A lot of stuff that's now in there, like resizing is another one. There's no resizing on this version of the emulator. The layout just loads in at the resolution it was created at, and if your screen's too small, or your resolution is too low, then tough, it just won't fit. Similarly, if it's a low-res layout and you've got a massive 4K screen, it's going to look like a postage stamp on it. And other things that it didn't have were autoplay. It's another quality of life. There's no autoplay on this. So the way that I got this ready for a jackpot, because I really like Up and Over, this is the other thing. It looks very much like Up and Over. It's a very different machine, but it looks a lot like Up and Over. And Up and Over was one of the problematic ROM sets. It was one of the problematic MPU5 ROM sets that did not run in this version of the emulator. So there was no layout for it. So that Up and Over was only one that was done recently. However, this has got the same sample bank, and I always loved the samples on Up and Over. I mentioned that in those 2 videos that I made. I gave particular prominence to the sound pack, the music and the sounds, and Trailblazer Club basically has the same sample pack, so it was almost like a way to play Up and Over without actually being able to play Up and Over, because the ROMs didn't run in this version of the emulator. Although it's actually a very different machine, it did at least have the same samples. You can also see here, by the way, this attract mode is not working properly on the real machine. These lamps here are kind of all shimmering in and out. There's no dimmed lamp support in this version of the emulator. Your lamps are either on or off, which is why you've just got a static grid there and no movement on the lamps in attract mode. So it's imperfect, but it works well enough. And what I did was just every so often I'd load this layout up. It literally took me years, and I mean about a decade on and off of playing this. Every so often I'd just load it up and I'd put maybe 30, 40, 50 quid through it, and at the end of the set I'd never collect anything. I just did a basic force on it right from a factory reset. And in my head I had, one of these days it's going to pay out a jackpot, and eventually, I don't know how much I've put into it because the meters don't work either, but it was gradually getting happier. Basically the whole board here is just irrelevant. It's these balloons. You've got a high-low gamble up these balloons at the top. I can't remember where the blocks were. There were obvious blocks gambling up the balloons there. And eventually, one day, it let me gamble out the £1,000. Fuck knows how much I had to put through to get it. And at that point, before I quit out the emulator, I took a copy of the RAM and GAM file at that point, so that I could just reload those in. And I had the machine effectively saved in a jackpot-ready state, and I can just copy that RAM and GAM file back into the layout folder, and I have this machine ready to pay a jackpot. But yeah, on and off, I'm going to say it took maybe 10 years on and off of just loading this layout in. Every so often I'd load it up, throw 40, 50 quid through it, and it was a long-term kind of vague sort of goal that I had to get a jackpot out of it, and we will get a jackpot out of it in this video. One thing that this to note is that this existed in all kinds of stake and prize combos, from right down 5p £75 jackpot. There was a 20p £250 version. I think there was a 10p, which would have been £100 or £150, and you had this one here, This is the big version. This is the casino version. This £1,000 jackpot was only permitted in casinos. This is the casino ROM set with a £1,000 jackpot. You can see, though, that they've made it so that they have to change as little as possible. This win panel here, the bottom half of the win panel is fixed, because you can see there that goes up to 30 quid. So that would actually work just as well for the £75 jackpot. So this bit here is decaled. So you can decal this bit for whatever your jackpot is, and you'd have to change these decals up here. But the board itself can remain the same. All of this win panel, that would have just been fixed for all the stake and prize combos. Your feature board wouldn't have to change, just these bits here. There was a little bit of a chat about it over at Desert Island, not Desert Island, this is over at Jackpotty rather. There was some talk about this, and basically, yeah, the people who played the real thing back in the day saying it was just a force. It was a basic force, but you needed to know where it was up to the cycle. You can see this comment here. Yes, pretty much a force on a cycle when you know it has taken money and that the money was rotated. Much like many of the club fruits of that ilk, could roll in a jackpot and do reasonable afterplay. If I played this 300 times, I won on it over 260 times. Got slaughtered on the shitty £250 version many times, and in the end took it off my radar as it wasn't worth keeping tabs on. Much like other 250s in the same era, I let the kids have it. Depending on percentage, was a very fair and profitable game, as long as some sly content slipped in and done it, which was why we used to have staff in most casinos that would provide meters and other info. You will see that comment a lot about club machines, not just this one, just club machines in general, that you really, the players, you know, serious players at the time who used to take jackpots out of these, they had friendly staff. They had bar staff or other staff kind of on the premises who would give them a nod as to how much money it was taking, whether or not the jackpot had been won. I mean, in this case here, this guy saying that they actually used people who would show them the meters to let them know when it was ready to be done, because a lot of these club machines are actually fairly predictable in terms of when they're ready to pay a jackpot. So obviously you've got a massive advantage if you have that information to hand. And just one thing as well, it is in the back of this shot in the film Rocknrolla. And if we just have a look, you got these two chaps talking here in Rocknrolla. Just have a little look in the background here, and you will see Trailblazer Club in attract mode. And the thing that to note is, just remember what the attract mode looked like in the emulator. It didn't look very good. Can you see there? It's that one there on the left. You can see the balloons at the top. But can you see how all the lights there on the board are kind of fading in and out? That's your dimmed lights being used there, which aren't in use. And you can see it pretty, well, I'll say clearly, it's out of focus, but you can certainly see enough to get the idea of what's going on. That feature board there is all kind of nice shimmery lights, and it's just completely static in the emulator because the emulator has no support for dimmed lamps. I don't know about you, but I am, whenever I'm watching a film or a TV programme, particularly obviously a British, a film that's set in Britain or made in Britain, and there's ever a pub or a club scene, I can never just, if there's a fruit machine on screen, I'm immediately transfixed by it and trying to work out what it is, and I kind of forget to watch the film until I've worked out what the fucking fruit machine is. There've been threads at all the fruit machine. You can see there a little bit of the attract mode, the text. Can see there, try and win. It is Trailblazer Club. Definitely, we had a little chat about it over at Jackpotty, but there have been threads at all the fruit machine emulation forums over the years where people are taking pictures of, there's a fruit machine, oh there, that's finished there, people are taking pictures when it's in the back of a shot and that kind of thing, and we're trying to work out what the fruit machine is. I'm terrible for it. I have to go back. I usually lose the thread of the film until I've worked out what the fruit machine is, and then I have to go back and watch that bit of the film again because it's taken my attention out of it. But you did see there how the attract mode was working properly. It would be better. It would be nice if this was working in the new version of the emulator, so we'd have all that support stuff, but it works fine in this, and we have got it ready to pay a jackpot, which I'm going to do now. But just wanted to talk a little bit about this version of the emulator. It's a little bit of fruit machine history, not the best bit of fruit machine history, but frankly, it was the only way that we had to play MPU5 and Scorpion 4 machines for, 13 years from the official release of version 3.2 to, it was 2018, wasn't it, that 5.1 was released. So it's like 12 years this was the only way, this was the only version of the emulator that existed in the public domain that you could play MPU5 and Scorpion 4 machines on. It wasn't perfect, but it was all we had. But of course, now in this new era of Fruit Machine emulation, we have all the new versions which support these techs properly, officially, publicly released. But very sadly, of course, we have lost the author of this now with the passing of Chris. So it's a bit of history. It's not the nicest bit of history, but it's there. It exists. So it's, I suppose, valid to feature it. And it's the only way that we can play this machine. So with all of that said, let's have a go on the machine itself and take the Jackpot out of it. I genuinely have no idea how much it's had through it because the meters are fucked as well. But at the end of the day, it's ready to pay out £1,000 Jackpot, so God knows how much I've put through it. I know they take a long time to get ready. Oh, let me just turn that down a little bit, otherwise that's going to be echo. There's me fecking volume. Come on, Degsy. Let me just turn the volume down a little bit, or we're going to get some kind of echo on the... You can see there that the reel movement is a little bit clunky. It's not the ideal way to play this, but it does work. Now, this is super happy, so what we'll probably find here is it'll do holds after nudges works on this, by the way, which is quite unusual. Where's that going up to? Only going up to 160. Now then, it'll do holds after nudges for all sorts of things. It'll do I think three holds works on it as well, that kind of thing. And you'll see it doing it here for 10, 15, 20 and £25. Now, the one thing that you can see here straight away is that this is very different to up and over, in that there's only one high-low, and you can't choose your route. This is partly why I think it's called Trailblazer instead of up and over, because there's no concept of up and over in this, because in the AWP version, you've got two high-low reels, whereas in this, you've just got a simple, straightforward, high-low gamble, and that's it. And it picks the route for you. You can see there that route is defined for me. I've got no choice of where to go. All I can do is high-low, and I've got that was no use gamble. All I've got here is a couple of changed numbers. The route is defined for me. The feature board by itself, frankly, is a waste of time. It's this stuff at the top. It's your balloons. Oh, that was a bit harsh. It's the balloons up at the top. The feature board was a one-size-fits-all. That will work on all the stake and price combos. Nothing would need to be changed for that. And you can see there, they're all thoroughly unimpressive. And I'm sure some of these ones up near the top can play a decent amount, but it gives you an idea. The fact that the lowest value balloon there is 30 quid gives you an idea. I mean, 5 wind spins, what's that going to be? Like 10 quid, 15 quid, 20 quid, something like that. And that's right up at the top of the board. So it was the way to do this was just to gamble it straight out on a force. You see we've got a basic entry there. It'll probably kill me a few times, but it will go. I mean, I want to try and perhaps save the chair. I don't think it really makes any difference. But we'll see if we can save the change numbers for when we get up to... Ooh, that's a bit of a shit number, isn't it? Oh, maybe I should have used a change number there. It'll go up. It should only be about 20 or 30 quid away from climbing out to the Jackpot. If we can get... shall we try us a little bit optimistic? But we'll give it a go. And no, I think 3 holes does work. 3 holes does work. Certainly hold after nudges works on this. Which so we might do as a hold after nudges here for the bars. It hasn't for the single bars because that's 15 quid. These wins here up at the top of the win panel, 15, 20, 25, are basically putting you in right on the balloons. You can hear there the samples in the background. It's basically... Oh, what have we got there? It's only cherry. I'm not asked about cherry. Let's be I was being a little bit optimistic. Oh, that'll put us in. It should be prepared to give us hold after nudges for fairly big wins. But you can see that there's no real, unlike the AWP version where there's a little bit of strategy involved. You've got to, kind of think your way about the route, think about your change numbers because you've got 2 reels to consider. There's no concept of that on this. It's just a straightforward route that you have to follow. No thinking involved. You're just doing simple high-low gambles. I will, as ever, I'm not quite sure what to do about making these available over at Desert Island Fruits because you need a leaked version of the emulator. Which is certainly not available to download at Desert Island Fruits. Really, we'd need someone to convert it over. Someone who knows what they're doing that's causing the machine to alarm when you load it in version 5.1. I'm sure it could be fixed by somebody who knows what they're doing. But the problem is then, I don't know what would be involved in fixing it. that would perhaps stuff up their... Oh, that was a fucking... I think it goes up to the same every time, doesn't it? It's going up to 8 quid. I don't know if that... Oh, that was well done, Degsy. I don't know if that conversion process would actually fuck up the RAM for it in the process, because the main thing here, of course, is that you've got it ready to pay a jackpot. So you see there, that £6 win started us way up near the top. I've got one change number. We'll try and save that. So now we get... Oh, now we're getting into the big stuff. Now we're getting to the balloons, and I wish I didn't think to make a note. I never thought I'd be making a video about it when I was doing this, but there were blocks, not at every balloon, but there were several blocks along the top here. Really, really obvious blocks that it'd never give you a 1 and a 12 on. And if it wanted to, or rather when the block was on, it would just kill you. 2 and 11 was death, and it would never give you a 1 or a 12 when the block was on. But there's a... Oh, it might go. It should be ready. Well, it is ready. Oh, my God. Now, this is what would you do if you were playing the real thing. £100 on a 6, unless you were a pro player and knew to do the 4s. You'd be shitting yourself, wouldn't it? Higher or lower than a 6 with 100 quid. Come on. Oh, my God. So we won to 250. So now it's 250 to 500 on an 11. Go on, then. Oh, my God. And lower than a 10 for a £1,000 jackpot. Oh my God, I wouldn't have the... Unless I was a pro player who knew what he was doing. God, you wouldn't have the balls, would you? Let's go lower than a 10 for a £1,000 jackpot. Come on. Oh, is there?
You hit the jackpot!
There we are. There immediately appear. And watch what it does, by the way. So it's, imagine the real machine chucking this out. Watch what it does when it gets down to 750 quid. There's no coin noises as well on this version of the emulator. Watch what it does at 750. Empty coin tray, then press collect to continue, because it was in the standard MPU5 cab of the time, so there's no way you're going to get £1,000 coins in the payout tray, so it spits them out 250 at a time. Fuck knows what kind of hopper it must have had. It would have, obviously this was the hopper era, not the tube era, but fuck knows. I mean, I guess it must have carried £1,000 coins. You see there, every 250 quid. It says scoot away your 250 quid. And then collect the next 250. I guess it must have held £1,000 coins, which is... Because, I mean, that was a thing as well. Clubs used to get broken into. I remember my brother's golf club in the early 1990s. They had... Their clubhouse got broken into on more than one occasion, because it's a little bit out of the way. A Harwood Golf Club, it was called. I'll put something up on the screen, show you where it is. I think it's still there, I believe. But yeah, I mean, the clubhouse, the golf course was in a little bit of a remote location. They had terrible problem. Their clubhouse got broken into, and they just went straight for the fucking fruit machines, because they had club machines, which I think at the time, I want to say they were on a £100 jackpot. I think they were 10p a go, 100 quid, 150 quid, but they just went straight for the machines. They just smashed the machines to pieces to get all the coins out of them. So, I mean, this thing, oh, God knows, I mean, did this really hold over £1,000 coins? I bet there was some people going for them. But there you go, anyway. We've seen the £1,000 jackpot. Maybe it'll have a little bit of afterplay in it. Shall we see if we can get a little bit of afters out of it? Well, obviously we've just had a jackpot out of it, so we'll be cautious and get our change number used, but I can't imagine it going back up into the balloons again at the top. So you see there, we've got £3 on a £1,000 jackpot machine, £3 plus repeat chance there. Fucking hell. So we want that too. I mean, you can see here the board itself is just shite. The only things of worth of note are the balloons at the top. I bet there was nothing worth collecting on the board here. Let's see how far we can get, though. Oh, well, we're getting... Oh, now I could maybe. I think because... oh, no, because you... No, your nudges only add to the actual win there, don't... Sorry, I'm being stupid. I thought I could use the nudges to get numbers. I'm forgetting I'm not... Oh, there we are. I think we can now, can't we? No, it just adds them to the nudge pot there. No, oh, so there's a £20 nudge win. So that's a little bit, you'd probably collect that. On the real machine, you'd probably collect that and take your £20 afters, but let's just see. I can't, oh, there we are. That was £20 afters board available there, but didn't want us to have any more than that. So there you go. That is the answer to the question. Was there a club version of Up and Over? Yes, there was. It was this fella here, Trailblazer Club. We've just seen it pay a £1,000 jackpot. I'll have a word over at Desert Island Fruits. When I upload a video, there's a long-running thread that I update. One at Desert Island Fruits, one at Jackpot, and one at Casino Meister, which is where we sometimes get the chats going about the videos. So when I upload this video and publish it, I'll update the thread over at Desert Island Fruits. And what I'll do is ask if there's anyone who can maybe have a look at this and see if they can get it working in the new version. You get it converted over and get it working. Convert it through 5.1, get it working in 20.1, and also preserve the RAM file, because it's the RAM file here that's had God knows how much through it that's ready to pay the jackpot. Although, having said that, it wouldn't be the end of the world to do it from scratch in the new version of the emulator, because of course we've got autoplay. You can have autoplay take the strain for you. There was no such thing on this version of the emulator, so you had to do it the old-fashioned way and just play a fuckload of money through it like I did. So I think that's it for this one. There's no need to bang on. It's a little bit. I mean, it's. I'm slightly wary about these leaked versions of the emulator, because I know they were a sore point for Chris, and there was a lot of bad blood about it back in the day. Obviously, Chris has passed now, but I don't want to kind of be disrespectful to his memory, but it is part of the Fruit Machine emulation history scene, and it is, frankly, it's the only way that I can answer the question, was there a club version of this, by running it in the leaked version of the emulator. I'll see if we can get this converted over and running in the new version of the emulator. Then we've kind of got a legitimate way of playing it. And with that said, of course, rest in peace to Chris, who, without his work, we would have none of these things available to us. So thank you very much for watching. I do hope you have enjoyed this video, and I will catch up with you next time. But for now, as ever it is, goodbye.
It's there! Holy moly, this one's going to go big.
Hello and welcome back to the channel, and just a quick update video on the Trailblazer Club situation, because if you watched the previous video, you'll know that I wasn't quite sure how I was going to make the layout available for you to play for yourselves to try taking out that £1,000 jackpot, because the layout itself ran in the old leaked version of the emulator, and when I loaded it into the new version of the emulator to try and convert it over, we got that horrible alarm. Well, as it turns out, it's actually already been fixed. One thing, in fact, before I just go over to Desert Island Fruits to show you the thread, on the right hand side, it's running in the new version of the emulator, and can you see that the attract mode is working correctly? I said in the previous video, and we'll see it, we'll do a compare and contrast, but just look on the right hand side. All of those dimmed lights in the attract mode are fading in and out as they should do. That actually starts working automatically. Once you convert the layout over, fix the errors on it, it actually starts doing that automatically. There were no other changes made for that to happen. So we'll just wait. You saw it there on the right hand side. Now let's look at it on the left hand side. And there it is. You can see it's completely static. That's the problem there. There's no such thing as dimming lamps. The version on the left-hand side, that's the version of the emulator that I used to make the previous video. The one on the right-hand side is running in the very latest version of the emulator, and the errors have been fixed. And basically, I missed this thread over at Desert Island Fruits. Last September, Dugster posted a Jackpot Happy RAM file for Trailblazer Club. There was a little bit of a chat, the same thing as I came up to, which is you got that horrible alarm when you loaded it in. Turns out there's just a couple of really simple fixes that Dugster posted the details of there. So what I have done now, and I will link in the video description of this video, I will link directly to this post, because what I've done here, the thing with Dugster here, is he's literally just posted the RAM file. It isn't the layout itself, and he's only included details of the fix. So with that, with just the RAM file by itself and that there, if you're not too comfortable mucking about in the emulator and you don't have the layout or where to get it from, you'll still be stuck. So what I've done here is included a file in this post, an attachment on this post, which is everything that you need. That is the layout itself. You can see there that is converted over to work in the new version of the emulator. We've also got a Jackpot happy RAM file. That is my RAM file. It's ready to pay a jackpot. And I've also included a backup of the RAM file as well. So if you take the Jackpot out and you want to have another go at it, all you need to do is copy that RAM file in the Jackpot close folder, overwrite the existing one whilst the layout is closed down, mind. So shut the emulator down first. Then you can just copy that file in there, overwrite the file there, and you will be back to playing a Jackpot happy version of it. And you can then take the Jackpot out as many times as you want to your heart's content, all running properly in the new version of the emulator. The other benefit, of course, there is that you get all the quality of life improvements. So you've got auto throttle. You don't have to set at the speed. That was one other thing. Let me just bring this down. In this version of the emulator, you have to muck about with this number here to get it running at the correct speed, and it was always slightly inconsistent depending on what the lamps were doing and what the reels were doing and all that sort of thing. There hasn't been any such concept of that in the emulator since version 5 was released at the back end of 2016. I actually got that wrong in the previous video. Even the graphics that I put on screen to correct myself to 2017, that was still wrong. Version 5 was released back in November 2016. I think I'm still a little bit out. I haven't adjusted to 2021 yet. So not that it really matters, but I don't like it when I get the sort of dates wrong on things. So November 2016 when version 5 was released. Then since then we have had auto throttle. There's no such concept of adjusting the speed yourself. You've got autoplay in there, you've got the dimming lamps, and also I noticed, well, you can see there the attract mode is not working in the old version of the emulator. There we've just got that static grid. One other thing that I noticed when I was taking out the Jackpot in the new version of the emulator, when you get the Jackpot in the old version of the emulator, the lights are lagging behind, so it doesn't actually finish doing the scroll of Jackpot £1,000 across. It spells it out using all the lamps on the board. That isn't synced in properly, whereas it is on the new version of the emulator. All that kind of stuff, all the tweaks and improvements that Chris has made over the years. So obviously you are much better off playing it in the new version of the emulator. So it's as simple as that. I will link directly to this post in the video description. You can, as long as you've got an account over at Desert Island Fruits, all you need to do, download that file there, unzip it onto your PC, load it into the new version of the emulator, and you will be ready to go with a £1,000 Jackpot happy RAM file. And you can maybe have a little play around with it, because obviously what I did in the video was just gamble it out. I don't know, maybe if you take 5 win spins right at the top here and the machine is Jackpot happy, would it start spinning in these really big values at the top to try and pay out the jackpot value? Or is the only way you can get the jackpot on this or anything close to it gambling up the balloons along the top here? I don't know. I haven't played around with that. It's something that I think I might actually have a go with myself. Maybe you could even get some of these really big wins off the nudges on the board. Again, I don't know, but it's the kind of thing that you can play around with. And because you've always got the backup copy of the RAM file to return to, you can just have as many goes at it as you want to. So nothing else really to say on that. It's really just a quick update. So sorry to Dougster, I didn't realise that he'd already created this thread back in September last year, but I've also just gone the little extra step there. Just for people who aren't too comfortable or don't have the original layout to even modify, you can just download the whole thing there, and that will give you everything that you need to be able to have a go with this for yourself. I know there were a few guys over at Casino Meister who were keen to have a go at this one. They were a couple of guys, in fact, who said over there, you know, wasn't there a club version of this? I'm sure I remember there was a club version of Up and Over. So they're keen to have a go with this as well. That's it. Wow, look at that. Under 7 minutes. That's incredible. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch up with you next time. For now, goodbye.